She played a crucial role in the ascension of sultans to the throne and eventually ruled from the shadows. Her story is filled with secrets hidden deep within the palace walls. The bright and dark faces of the Ottoman Empire were shaped by her influence. Intrigues, power struggles, and betrayals begin hidden behind the palace walls. Starting as a young concubine, her journey would transform her into the most powerful woman of the empire. Kösem was not just a woman. She was a strategist, a leader, and a shadow warrior. Every event in the palace was at her fingertips. She influenced the hearts and minds of the sultans, changing the fate of the Ottoman Empire. This story will reveal the unknown face of the palace through Kösem Sultan's eyes. We open the doors to a period filled with mystery, intrigue, and passion. The forgotten truths buried in history's dusty pages will come to light. We will witness the revolutions carried out by a woman's hand on the Ottoman throne. On this journey, we will reach the secrets of the palace and the truths behind the shadows. Kösem's mind and power will shine a light amid the palace's chaos. But power always demands a price, and that price will be heavy. In the depths of the palace, friend and foe are never clear. The dance of Kösem Sultan with the shadows is about to begin. Kösem Sultan began her life as a young concubine in the mysterious palaces of Istanbul. To survive in the palace, she had to be equipped with power, intelligence, and courage. At that time, Sultan Murad IV ruled the Ottoman throne. A harsh and feared ruler, Kösem quickly mastered the palace intrigues. Her intelligence and subtlety set her apart from the other concubines immediately. It was not easy to catch the Sultan's attention, but Kösem succeeded. She gained a special place in Murad IV's eyes, not just as a concubine, but also as a confidant. This closeness was the first step of her rise in the palace. But palace rules were ruthless, and enemies were many. Kösem's struggle to survive began within the cold walls of the palace. She planned every move carefully and trusted no one. Whispers floated in the dark corridors. Kösem's future was a great mystery. Over time, with the Sultan's support, she entered into competition with other concubines. Her goal was not just to survive, but to seize the real power of the palace. This ambition would make her one of the most influential women in Ottoman history. But this path was full of sacrifice and pain. By mothering the Sultan's children, Kösem further solidified her position in the palace. The future of the empire was now in her hands. No one could predict how deep and powerful she would become. And so, Kösem Sultan's rise was beginning. The sudden death of Murad IV deeply shook the palace. Young Mehmed ascended the throne as one of the youngest sultans in Ottoman history. But Mehmed's ascension at a young age shifted the balance of power within the palace. Kösem Sultan, as the mother of the new sultan, increased her influence in the palace. She was no longer just a concubine, but one of the true patrons of the state. New alliances were being formed within the palace. Old rivalries were not forgotten. Kösem's intelligence came to the forefront in this complex environment. Every move she made was carefully planned. The fate of the palace was in her hands. Mehmed's youth and inexperience were an opportunity for Kösem, guiding him. She advanced toward becoming the true owner of the throne. A period of many intrigues and espionage began inside the palace. Kösem's power was felt not only within the palace, but also in foreign relations. Her influence on the Sultan's decisions was growing. Between peace and chaos stretched a thin line across the vast Ottoman lands. Kösem struggled to maintain this balance. At every step, new enemies and betrayals appeared. But she never stepped back. Her determination was unshakable. A new order was being established in the palace, and Kösem was the center of this order. As the mother of the Sultan, her voice was always strong and effective, and so Kösem Sultan stepped into the darkest and most powerful era of the Ottoman Empire. Kösem Sultan's greatest power was her love and devotion to her children. The children born beside Sultan Mehmed were the cornerstone of her political legacy. Motherhood in the palace was not just about love, but also a part of strategy. The lives of the children meant the future of the Ottoman throne. Kösem placed great importance on the education of each of her children. Their proper upbringing could change the balance within the palace. Under the shadow of the Sultan, her children cemented her power, but this power also brought great dangers. Jealousy and intrigues never ceased in the palace. Every child would be engaged in a struggle to ascend the throne. Kösem was both protector and planner in this struggle. Her intelligence determined the fate of her children. A silent but effective war was ongoing in the depths of the palace. Kösem's enemies sought opportunities to harm her children, yet she was always one step ahead. There was nothing she wouldn't sacrifice for her children. The balance of love and power inside the palace was constantly shifting. Kösem risked her life to maintain this balance. She was not just a mother, but a strategist, holding the fate of the Ottoman Empire in her hands. And so, the darkest games of the palace were about to begin. Kösem Sultan's influence extended beyond the palace and into state affairs. Grand viziers and ministers had to listen to her opinions. The power struggle within the palace intensified day by day. Kösem acted skillfully, like a master player in the midst of political intrigues. Every new decision was a move that affected the future of the Ottoman Empire. While the Sultan's mind sometimes grew foggy and tired, Kösem stood firm. She was not only mothering, but also governing the state. Quiet whispers circulated in the palace corridors. Kösem's name was spoken with both fear and respect. Even foreign powers felt her influence. As unrest emerged on the Ottoman borders, Kösem was developing strategies. Her intelligence was like a fortress, preventing the empire's disintegration. At every hardship, Kösem appeared with new solutions. This period was one of the strongest times for women in Ottoman governance. Kösem Sultan made decisions that would leave a mark on history. But this power also increased the number of her enemies. There was always a risk of betrayal within the palace. Kösem chose her circle carefully and surrounded herself with loyalists. Her leadership shaped the fate of the Ottoman Empire. This woman, who grew in the shadow of the Sultan, was now the true owner of the throne. And so, Kösem Sultan's brightest and darkest era began. Kösem Sultan, the condition of the people, economic difficulties, and wars deeply affected her. Signs of unrest were increasing across the vast Ottoman territories. Kösem aimed to gain power not only within the palace, but also among the people. Therefore, she initiated charity campaigns and public relations projects. Her approach resonated in the hearts beyond the cold walls of the palace. Kösem's policies made her a different kind of leader in the eyes of the people. However, these efforts increased the jealousy of her rivals in the palace. Those who wanted to diminish her influence launched attacks with rumors and conspiracies. But Kösem was always one step ahead and kept her plans tightly guarded. The Sultan's health problems made Kösem's role even more critical. She was no longer only a mother, but also the key to the state. Kösem's leadership determined the fate of the Ottoman Empire. She struggled to maintain peace both inside and outside. Every new crisis tested her strategic intelligence. The intrigues arising in the palace only strengthened her. Kösem was prepared against anyone who threatened her. The love and loyalty of the people became her greatest support. This period would witness the last bright days of the Ottoman Empire, and thus Kösem Sultan's power further solidified. Kösem Sultan's influence in the palace grew stronger day by day. The Sultan's health was deteriorating, creating new balances within the palace. The future of the throne was uncertain. Who truly held the power? Kösem moved to fill this void. Loyalty and betrayal intertwined within the palace. Kösem gathered her trusted advisors. These advisors stood by her in decisions that would affect the fate of the Ottoman Empire. Rumors, plans, and conspiracies flew through the palace air. There was a watchful eye in every corner, an ear in every hall. Kösem carefully observed her enemies' games. She was prepared for their moves and planned counteractions. The power struggle inside the palace had intensified like never before. Kösem's children were at the center of the throne struggle. This fight was not only for power, but also for survival. Trust had become a luxury in the palace. Every step was taken carefully. Every word weighed. Kösem was successfully managing both motherhood and leadership. Her intelligence and determination continued to shape the fate of the Ottoman Empire. This period was one of the most critical and dangerous times in the palace, and Kösem Sultan stood tall in the very heart of this storm. Kösem Sultan strengthened her power through alliances formed within the palace. Key figures of the palace gathered around her, offering their loyalty. These alliances formed a strong defense against both internal and external threats. But her rivals did not like this situation and prepared countermoves. Kösem planned every step with great care. Her strategic intelligence was effective in unraveling the palace's complex games. There was always a risk of explosion, of intrigue and betrayal in the palace. Kösem could predict her enemies' moves beforehand. This way, she seized opportunities to defeat them. The Sultan's support was her greatest trump card. But Kösem was constantly alert not to lose this support. Power balances in the palace were constantly shifting. Alliances were formed, but trust was rarely found. Kösem carefully distinguished between friends and enemies. This distinction was essential for survival. Every corner of the palace was dark, every step filled with risk. Kösem overcame these dangers with her calmness and determination. Her leadership continued to shape the fate of the Ottoman Empire. One of the most critical periods of the reign was taking place, and Kösem Sultan did not lose her way in this storm. As Kösem Sultan's children grew, the competition in the palace intensified. Each one fought to be the true heir to the throne. The relationships between siblings were complex and tense. Kösem had to manage this rivalry because the future of the Ottoman Empire was in these children's hands. Every move and every word was carefully chosen. Secrets and lies circulated within the palace. Kösem developed strategies to maintain balance among her children. However, some began to oppose their mother's influence. This situation led to new conflicts in the palace. Kösem tried to manage these crises with a strong stance. This internal war in the palace would shape the future of the Ottoman Empire. Foreign powers took advantage of this turmoil by making moves. Kösem took precautions against both internal and external threats. The number of betrayals in the palace increased during this period. Kösem's intelligence and experience protected her from her rivals. The Sultan's support was her greatest pillar. Amid the palace chaos, Kösem stood tall. She fought for the safety of her children and the future of the empire. During this period, the palace witnessed the most complex games in history, and Kösem Sultan increased her power right in the middle of this turmoil. The rising power balances within the palace heightened Kösem Sultan's vigilance. Every new day brought a new threat and opportunity. Kösem acted by anticipating her rivals' plans. There were complex relations among grand viziers and ministers. These relations directly affected the palace's inner workings. Kösem skillfully navigated this complex web to protect her interests. Her intelligence prevented many major Ottoman crises multiple times. The games played in the dark corners of the palace sometimes had deadly outcomes, but Kösem was fearless and determined. The Sultan's trust was her greatest source of power. This trust enabled her to obtain the most powerful position in the palace. Kösem began to be known not just as a woman, but as a leader. The role of women in the Ottoman palace was redefined with her. This situation was envied and seen as a threat by many. However, Kösem continued on her path. Despite all obstacles, every new intrigue only strengthened her. Her enemies in the palace admired her intelligence. Kösem continued to make decisions that changed the fate of the Ottoman Empire. Her shadow was felt in every corner of the palace. And so, Kösem Sultan's story was written into the fate of the Ottoman Empire. Kösem Sultan faced one of the greatest challenges of the palace, the throne struggle. The rivalry among her children weighed heavily on the palace atmosphere. Each claimed the right to the Ottoman throne. This situation endangered the security and peace within the palace. Kösem played the role of both mother and strategist in this struggle. She took every precaution for the safety of her children. Threats also came from outside the palace. European states aimed to weaken the Ottoman Empire. Kösem was cautious and vigilant against both internal and external enemies. Her intelligence was one of the main reasons for the Ottoman Empire's survival. Intrigues in the palace proved ineffective against her determination. Kösem's plans secured the future of the Ottoman Empire. But personal sacrifices were also made during this process. The tragedies inside the palace placed heavy burdens on her shoulders, yet she never gave up and continued the struggle. She took her place in history as a strong woman. Kösem Sultan was remembered as a figure holding the fate of the Ottoman Empire in her hands. Her story was a blend of power, sacrifice, and strategy. What happened inside and outside the palace changed the course of history. And Kösem Sultan became the most important player in this great game. Thus, she was remembered as one of the unforgettable women in Ottoman history. Kösem Sultan was preparing the beginning of a new era in the palace. The Sultan's health was deteriorating, affecting political balances. The future of the throne was uncertain, causing various power centers to mobilize. Kösem remained calm and determined in this complex environment. Her leadership played an important role in maintaining stability in the palace. Grand viziers and ministers began to listen more to Kösem's views. New alliances were formed within the palace, and old hostilities reshaped. Kösem carefully followed these changes and seized opportunities. State affairs were increasingly under her control. The Sultan's weakening increased Kösem's influence. This rise in power caused unease in some circles. However, Kösem skillfully neutralized her opponents. Rumors circulating in the palace were against those who underestimated her power. Kösem was always cautious and prepared as usual. Her wisdom became a light in the Ottomans' difficult times. She gained respect and love in the eyes of the people as well. During this period, Kösem Sultan began to be recognized as one of the most influential women in Ottoman history. Her story was a blend of power, patience, and strategy. Every development in the palace strengthened her determination, and so Kösem Sultan guided a new era. Kösem Sultan's rise to power in the palace also echoed among the people. The people believed she ruled with justice and mercy. Social projects and charity campaigns strengthened her bonds with the people. Kösem was influential not only inside the palace, but across the empire. This influence contributed significantly to the Ottomans' stability. Her rivals in the palace were disturbed by her popularity. Yet Kösem stood firm against conspiracies plotted against her. She grew stronger with every hardship and renewed her strategies. As the Sultan's health worsened, Kösem took a more active role in state affairs. Her determination created an atmosphere of trust within the palace. Kösem's leadership became a symbol of women gaining power in the Ottoman realm. She gained respect both in the palace and among the people. She was not just a woman, but a symbol of leadership. Her story was woven with power, love, and determination. Kösem left her mark on Ottoman history. Her influence inspired generations to come. Her name still echoed in the dark corridors of the palace. During this period, the Ottoman Empire faced many internal and external problems. Kösem worked with all her might to solve these issues. And so, Kösem Sultan's leadership opened a new chapter in Ottoman history. Kösem Sultan sensed rising dangers in the palace and took precautions. Betrayal and conspiracies were hidden in every corner of the palace. She was prepared against these dark games. These advisors played a major role in unraveling palace intrigues. Kösem's intelligence thwarted her rivals' plans. Every move she made was a step that affected the fate of the Ottoman Empire. Power balances in the palace were constantly shifting, but her enemies constantly plotted to overthrow her. Kösem kept her composure in the face of every threat. This composure was her greatest weapon. The intrigues unfolding within the palace did not intimidate her. Kösem was remembered in Ottoman history for her courage and leadership. Her story was a symbol of standing tall despite hardships. Her name was spoken with respect in the dark corridors of the palace. And so, Kösem Sultan's power grew day by day. As Kösem Sultan consolidated her power in the palace, new challenges arose. Rebellions began to rise on the empire's borders. This situation directly affected the balances within the palace. Kösem took swift and decisive steps to manage these crises. She communicated with military leaders and developed strategies. She made strong plans to suppress the rebellions. Her leadership prevented the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire. Some circles in the palace were disturbed and opposed this situation. But Kösem paid no attention to the criticisms. She continued to work for the good of the state and the people. The survival of the empire was her top priority. Power games continued within the palace, but Kösem overcame them all. The Sultan's support was vital for her. With this support, she grew even stronger. Kösem led both in the palace and on the battlefield. Her name was spoken with both fear and respect, and so Kösem Sultan solidified her place in Ottoman history. Kösem Sultan skillfully managed the palace's most complex intrigues. Her intelligence and composure defeated many of her enemies. She always carefully maintained the fine line between loyalty and betrayal within the palace. The Sultan's support was her greatest pillar. Her rivals in the palace constantly tried to overthrow her, but Kösem was always one step ahead. Her leadership played a critical role in overcoming the Ottoman Empire's challenges. Every crisis was a new opportunity for her. Her story became a symbol of strength and perseverance. Kösem Sultan created a turning point in the fate of the Ottoman Empire. Just mentioning her name instilled fear in many, yet the people respected her leadership. Her name became legendary in the dark corridors of the palace. Her power and influence were remembered by generations to come. And so, Kösem Sultan's dance with shadows continued. Kösem Sultan was gaining more influence in the palace every day. Her decisions brought significant changes to Ottoman governance. As the Sultan's illness deepened, Kösem took an active role in state affairs. This caused both support and opposition within the palace. Despite criticism, Kösem remained determined. She dealt with problems across the empire. She focused on social projects to gain the trust of the people. As palace intrigues increased, Kösem responded with strategic moves. Her intelligence changed the balances within the palace. Kösem took careful steps in the complex throne struggle. The rivalry among her children was a major test for her. But Kösem overcame these difficulties. Her strong will laid the foundations of a new order in the palace. Her leadership became one of the unforgettable moments in Ottoman history. Her name was spoken with both respect and fear in the palace. Kösem Sultan was the architect of the Ottoman Empire's last bright days, and so her dance with shadows continued. Kösem Sultan increased her precautions against rising threats in the palace. Networks of betrayal were spreading everywhere. Her intelligence allowed her to foresee her enemies' plans. Kösem continued to work with those who proved their loyalty. Relations within the palace became even more complicated during this period. Every move was part of a great strategy. Kösem skillfully managed the balance of power. The Sultan's support was her greatest assurance. Yet her enemies did not give up and made new plans. Kösem kept her composure in the face of every threat. Her determination changed the balances within the palace. Intrigues in the palace did not discourage her. Kösem Sultan went down in Ottoman history as a brave leader. Her story became a symbol of perseverance despite difficulties. Her name was spoken with respect in the dark corridors of the palace. Kösem's shadow spread to every corner of the palace. Her power determined the fate of the empire. Kösem Sultan became one of the unforgettable women in history. Her power and influence inspired generations to come. And so, Kösem Sultan's dance with shadows continued. Kösem Sultan was preparing to make her final great move in the palace. The future of the empire was in her hands. All balances within the palace were shaping around her. During this period, internal and external enemies had increased. Despite all obstacles, Kösem secretly implemented her plans. Her determination decided the fate of the palace. The Sultan's condition was worsening. This uncertainty increased the risk of chaos in the palace. Kösem managed this danger by maintaining her composure. Thanks to her strategies, the Ottoman stability was preserved. Many people inside the palace opposed her. However, Kösem formed a strong bloc with her supporters. This bloc prevented a civil war in the palace. Kösem's leadership saved the fate of the Ottoman Empire. She was remembered as one of the most influential women in history. Her name was spoken in every corner of the palace. Her story remained a symbol of power and determination. Kösem Sultan was the architect of the Ottoman Empire's last bright days. Her dance with shadows became legendary, and thus Kösem Sultan withdrew from the stage of history. Kösem Sultan was remembered as one of the most powerful and influential women in Ottoman history. Her life was a legend that unfolded in the shadows of the palace. She stood tall amidst hardships and betrayals. She made decisions that changed the fate of the Ottoman Empire. Her power and determination were etched into the pages of history. Kösem was not only a sultana, but also a leader. Her dance with shadows inspired many generations. The marks she left within the palace are still felt today. Kösem's strategies ensured the Ottoman Empire's longevity. Her story became a symbol of women's strength. The dark corridors of the palace whispered her name. Kösem Sultan became one of the most unforgettable figures in history. Her life was woven with power, sacrifice, and determination. Kösem was the shining star of the Ottoman Empire. The legacy she left in the palace and empire was immense. Her story will continue to be told throughout history. Wherever her name is mentioned, respect and admiration follow. The Ottoman Empire remained strong and influential under her leadership, and so Kösem Sultan's dance with shadows continued forever. Her name in the pages of history will remain a symbol of courage and leadership.